Hey guys, Loco here. I'm sure you've been waiting for my tier list, and yeah, the split's about to start in about a week, and I have to get it up before the split starts. I'm gonna do a two-parter. I'm gonna give you part 1 right now. I'll give you part 2 tomorrow, hopefully. Depends on whenever my editor puts it out, or if I get demonetized by YouTube again. So I'll try not to curse in the beginning, because apparently that's what's been getting me demonetized. In the past, I've been pretty conservative with tier list, and honestly, it's been very basic a lot of times. Like, I think I really have good reasoning. I really like using stats, and I like talking to people, try to get a feel of how scrims are going. Really strong opinions are really risky things out there in tier list. But this year I wanted to do it a little bit differently, and if I have a really good feeling about something, even though maybe the stats don't back it up, maybe even the scrims don't back it up, I do want to get it out there and just really stand by what my opinions are. So without further ado, let's go. Number 10, we have Golden Guardians. Ta-da! I don't think any of you guys were very surprised about this one. So their roster is Haunter, Closer, Golden Glue, FBI, and Keith. I think overall, this roster, there's so much risk being taken. Closer and FBI, minor region imports. So the whole bet on the minor region import is they have way better mindset than most NA players and Korean players and European players due to, just think of them as coming from a poor country or like a poor background. And then everyone else is coming from like a rich country and a rich background. So they're just more entitled and they don't work as hard. And the people coming from the worst background are working harder, right? To make something out of themselves. And that's pretty much what it is. Like, these minor region imports don't really have anything to go back to. Like, if you go back to Turkey, if you go back to Australia, you're really downgrading your career prospects. So yeah, they have to give it their all. And that's why they're going to have better mindsets than Korean players, European players, North American players as a generality. And also the other rationale for taking a risk on these players is NA talent pool is pretty dry. So yeah, that's their first experiment. The second experiment they're running is Golden Glue. Golden Glue in mid lane. Is Golden Glue better? Has he hit his skill ceiling? Like, can he improve more? The whole discussion about skill ceiling is really unique. League of Legends is a video game, right? Technically, in video games, you don't have a skill ceiling. It's not like in traditional sports where the body you're given limits you in things you can do and things you can't do. And yeah, if you're like a 5'4" person, you're not really going to be a great basketball player. So has Golden Glue hit his ceiling? Can he be better? Is he too good for Academy? I think that part is definitely true. I think he's too good for Academy. In terms of what he's going to be able to achieve in LCS, man, I really don't want to put players in boxes, but I really think we've seen enough of Grayson in terms of how good he can be, and I just don't ever see him developing into a top tier mid lane. He's been around long enough, he's been exposed to a lot of good coaches, a lot of good teammates, and yeah, we just haven't seen that real big pop off, and I don't think it's gonna come. So yeah, I also don't really believe in this experiment. And then the third one, the one I hate the most, is Keith support. So the rationale for this experiment is the lack of trust in NA support prospect. Just, there isn't great ones out there. They're not happy with the solo queue prospects. They're not happy with the academy prospects. And I think they feel like the best bet is to put Keith on support because that's someone they know, and they also know that he'll have great mechanics and a great mindset. It's like shoving a circle rod into a square peg. Let's use a different analogy. I completely understand Golden Guardian's situation regarding not having a lot of great options, and they feel like Keith is the best option, but it still really feels so forced. Keith has never been a very brainy player, and I think support is so much about leadership and game knowledge, and I just don't think it overlaps with his strength. So yeah, Golden Guardians running a lot of experiments. Everything is a huge risk other than Haunter and top lane, and I think most of them have very low chance of going well, so yeah, not a lot of good things going. Easy 10th place. Let's move on to Immortals. Well, welcome back Immortals. Your new roster is Soaz, Xmithie, Aika, Altec, and Hakuo. So there's a lot of pickups that stick out on this roster. The two French players, Soaz and Aika, and Altec. But before we get to that, I want to talk about Xmithie because I do think he's going to be the solid piece. He's the second most winningest player in LCS, right behind Doublelift. He's a shot caller, he's a leader in and out of game. Great glue player, I cannot stress this enough. Anytime Xmithie plays for a team, he always gets the best out of his teammates in the game, out of game. And yeah, he's just gonna be a great player for this team. Who is questioning this Xmithie pickup? Just no one. Now, also, I really like the Hakuo pickup. I think he's a good player that's been in bad situation. I think anyone that's an Echo Fox is kind of in a bad situation. So yeah, I also think the pairing of the Hakuo x Minty is going to be a solid backbone for this team to build off on. Now this is where we get to the gambles, right? Very similar to GGS. Extremely solid player in x Minty and a lot of other questionable pieces. So for the bet they're making on Aika, Altec, and Soads, if we understand these players better than the other teams and we see something in them that the others really don't. And also, they're betting on teamwork in a cohesive roster. It's something they talk about in their roster pickup video. And also, they're really betting on the player's mindset, like having a chip on their shoulder. I can understand the kind of bets they're taking, and it makes more sense than Golden Guardians, but I think individual strengths in carry roles is extremely important. And players that take a break and come back normally don't do very well. Like players like Prey, players like Froggen, and Altec isn't really even on the level of Prey and Froggen. And I know people are going to mention Doublelift, but that's an exception. He took a break for a split, and Doublelift is one of the best players in the region, taking a break and coming back. Yeah, overall, a lot of gambles that are risky, and carry players aren't strong on paper, so I have them on 9th. Even with x Minty and Hakuo on this team, I just don't see them doing anything better than 9th. Maybe they can do 8 or 7, but no playoff for sure. Now, let's go to FlyQuest. For FlyQuest, their roster is Viper, Centauran, Power of Evil, Turtle, and Ignar. People love talking about throwbacks, and yeah, this roster has a lot of throwbacks. And I know people are going to just point at Power of Evil, Ignar, talk about the Misfits' success at Worlds 2017 versus SKT. That is the high point of their career. But what has been their evolution beyond that? That is like the real question. Power of Evil, still very specific and champion dependent. He didn't play Akali or Irelia, who were huge dominant champions in the meta last year. And Ignar, while he is still a good playmaker, he's extremely inconsistent. And I think his playstyle is limited too. They are upgrades from Pobelter and Wadid, yes, but very slight upgrades, and they present new problems. Also, for Viper, Centauran, and Turtle, it's a pretty low tier NA core. I think this team can go up in rankings if they find the system for them that works early in the season before most of the teams figure out what they're doing, like they did in 2019. But I can't see this team have a lot of depth, and this team's really going to suffer the later and later they go in the season, and it's going to be really hard for them to push for playoffs in those later weeks. Now, we have EG. This is probably my most controversial placement in this video, but before we get to that, let's talk about their roster first. Kumo, Svenskeren, Zizuke, Bang, and Zeyzal. The player that sticks out, the player without any question mark, is Svenskeren. Nothing bad to say about Svenskeren. Maybe we talk about the 2019 Worlds performance, but for me, he's still the best jungler in LCS, and unless something changes, it will stay that way. Kumo, this one I think a lot of people will disagree with me on. I think he's a middling academy player that's getting a free pass because of previous C9 rookies before him, and just he's a C9 player, he'll be good. His CS differential at 15 in 2019 was 0.4. He was just a mediocre laner that had good players around him, and he had carry picks, and he had jungle help, and this is what he delivered. 0.4 CS lead at 15 minutes on average throughout the entire year. I think he's going to struggle, and I think he's going to be one of the worst tops in LCS. So Bang and Zeyzal, I think both are good players that have weaknesses that get passed over just due to the name. I think Bang's aggressiveness in lane, or the lack of it, and playing in uncomfortable situations has been pretty disappointing. Bang and Afro did not pan out the way we expected them to in 2019, and Afro ate a lot of the blame. I think there's blame on both ends. Bang rarely played or took risks to win lane. He was consistent, he was better in summer, but due to the superstar status from coming off of SKT, we scapegoated 100D's bot lane failure on Afro. And also, Zeyzal is actually a mechanically good support on melee engagers like Alistar and Galio, most notably. I think his Lux was atrocious and Kench pretty mediocre. And in the removal process of Sneaky, it gets understated, but the rest of C9 wanted the entire bot lane gone, not just Sneaky. C9 spent 1.5 million on Vulcan, and I think that says a lot about how problematic they view the Zeyzal situation. I think there's a huge chance that a non-impactful bot lane from Evil Genius, and people just see the name of Bang and Zeyzal and go, this is a bot lane duo that will be good. But I think this duo might actually highlight each other's weakness in lane, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to keep a close eye on. Lastly, Zizuke. He had an injury-filled season on a team that was falling apart everywhere, so I'm not going to make any strong statements. But if Zizuke continues to be inconsistent this year, this roster will not function. There's a lot of weight on the European duo of Zizuke and Sven to be a leading force for this team. If they aren't, my god, we're going to see some problems. I think names on this team really prevent a more accurate analysis of this team for most casual fans. If Zizuke clicks, they'll be fine and you can call me an idiot. But in the case that he doesn't, I think it's going to be a sinking ship with way too many holes for Sven to be plugging up. So finally, we get to my first playoff team, Dignitas. Their roster is Huni, Grig, Froggen, Johnson, and Afro. First up, I actually like the combination of Huni, Froggen, and Afro. I think Froggen plus Huni might not look great on paper, but they sync up really well in terms of their pros and cons. Huni is a draft resource heavy player. He likes counter picks, he likes having bans on meta champion. Froggen is a draft resource light player. He likes blinding picks, and people have to often spend bans on him to ban stuff like Anibia, Karthus, Vel'Koz, so they complement each other really well. Huni, in terms of playstyle in games, likes having jungle attentions, he likes the dives, he likes the 2v2. Froggen likes being independent early game, he's just kind of leave me alone and let me outfarm, let me outlane this guy. So yeah, you can see how nicely they play with each other just naturally in terms of how the puzzle pieces are fitting in. Afro also slots in really nicely as a shot caller that can lead both Johnson in lane and Grig in macro. I actually really like how all these things are fitting together, and I hope you guys can start to see it too. I think they'll squeeze out the last playoff spot, and Huni, Froggen, and Afro, and they'll be clutch when it gets to these later weeks, and all these teams are grinding for that final spot. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tier list, part 1. Part 2 coming at you very soon. I actually like discussing with you guys, and I've been trying to respond to YouTube comments more, especially because I have ADHD. So whenever I get bored or whenever I get distracted, instead of doing something unproductive, what I've been doing is just going to my YouTube comments and answering them. So let's have a discussion. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Suggest this video to your friends. You know the good shit. Like, subscribe, and comment. I think that shit was the only curse word that I used. And also, it's very much later towards the video, so please YouTube, don't flag me for monetization. Anyways, enjoy the content, and I'll see you later. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm not crazy, I'm just Soko. Later.